USSF 67.
There's nothing quite like witnessing a rocket launch. The ground-shaking power, the blinding light, and the sheer awe of watching humanity reach for the stars. It's an experience you'll never forget. And if you've never seen one, 2025 is the perfect year to make it happen. Hi, I'm Chris, and welcome to Orbital Frontiers. Today, I'll share why rocket launches are an experience of a lifetime and how you can make your own plans to see one live. First, let's talk about my experience. The first launch I ever saw was at Kennedy Space Center for the launch of USSF 67 on the Falcon Heavy. The second launch I ever saw was the fourth flight of Starship in Boca Chica, Texas. Both launches were absolutely amazing, but both provided great insights into what to expect at a launch and how to prepare for one. The launch at Kennedy Space Center was initially supposed to launch on a Thursday, but due to weather, the launch was delayed until Saturday. We lived in Savannah, Georgia at the time, so when we heard about the delay, we decided to spontaneously take a trip down to Cape Canaveral to attempt to see the launch. We discovered that Kennedy Space Center sells something called the Feel the Heat package, which allows you to view a launch from the iconic Apollo Saturn V Center and includes perks like food, access to exhibits, and a premium viewing spot. I'll cover more details on this package later on in the video. Since it was our first launch experience, we figured we should spend the money for the whole experience of seeing a launch. So we bought our tickets, booked an Airbnb, and drove down to Cape Canaveral. We visited Kennedy Space Center on Saturday, the day the launch was rescheduled for, but it was delayed again to Sunday due to high winds. So we returned to Kennedy Space Center the next day, and this time the launch was going to happen. We arrived to the Apollo Saturn V Center a few hours prior to the launch, allowing us to tour the center and also get some food that was provided with the tickets. Then came launch time. We made our way to the viewing stands where the excitement in the air was almost tangible. We found a spot at the top of the bleachers offering a clear view of the pad as spectators around us buzzed with anticipation. There, we met an older gentleman who was formerly an Air Force test pilot and his wife. They told us about their experiences in seeing most of the space shuttle launches and what to expect. He also gave great tips on what to bring with us to these launches. Finally, it happened. A giant smoke plume shot out from under the rocket, accompanied by a blinding orange light that lit up the entire viewing area. Cheers erupted from the crowd as the rocket ascended, leaving a glowing trail behind. The heat of the engines radiated across the stands, and the roar of the launch filled the air, making the moment feel larger than life. Oohs and ahs erupted from the crowd, and all I could feel were the chills at the sight. Then about 30 seconds into the flight, the rumbles came. You could hear the startup of the rocket engines, and the noise of the engines grew as the rocket lifted off the pad. The deep bass of the rocket's roar resonated through the air, vibrating in your chest and amplifying the awe of the moment. It gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. The sheer power, the emotional connection to human achievement, and the energy of the crowd all come rushing back to me. It's not just the sights and sounds, it's the feeling. Being there, surrounded by people who share your excitement, is something you have to experience at least once in your life. And each launch provides a different experience. With the Starship IFT-4 launch, the aura of the crowd was just different. Since it was a test flight, we didn't know what was going to happen. This thing could launch off the pad and explode, it could not separate, something could go wrong, but the fact of the matter is, the excitement was there. The only downside about IFT-4 was the weather. Unfortunately, we had a giant cloud of fog that was blocking our view of the launch pad from South Padre Island. We only really got 15 seconds of views of the actual rocket lifting off the pad before it disappeared in the clouds. But we still were able to feel the roar and the rumble of those engines from about 5 miles away. I just can't imagine what it would be like to be there for an actual booster catch or ship catch. It must be unbelievable. But 2025 might be my year to see it, and it might be your year to see it too. SpaceX's Starship is set to hit major milestones, including the first orbital refueling test, which are critical for enabling deep space exploration and eventual missions to Mars. Companies like Rocket Lab and Blue Origin are also stepping up with exciting missions. At the end of the day, it's not just entertainment, it's inspiring. For families, seeing a rocket launch is an incredible way to spark curiosity about science and space, and for anyone, it's a reminder of what humanity can achieve. Now, let's talk about where you can see a rocket launch in 2025. There's a lot of places across the world where you can see a rocket launch, but I'm going to mainly focus on the United States in this video because it's where you're most likely going to be able to see one. If you're in the US, the best place to go see a launch is in Cape Canaveral, Florida, where you can either see a launch at Kennedy Space Center or Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. If you go to KennedySpaceCenter.com, they actually have a calendar where you can see upcoming launches and you can also buy tickets to special viewing areas. Now earlier in the video I mentioned the Feel the Heat package. The Feel the Heat package is actually only used for select high-profile missions. For example, the launch that we saw and got the Feel the Heat package for was for the 5th ever flight of Falcon Heavy on the USSF-67 launch. Tickets for the Feel the Heat package costed about $250 per person, and you also got things like food, you were able to tour the Apollo and Saturn V Center, and we also got some memorabilia like photos and coffee cups that said NASA on it. And of course, with the tickets also came the special viewing area where you're about 3 miles away from the launch pad. Kennedy Space Center also offers packages where you can see launches from the Atlantis North Lawn, where you're approximately 7.5 miles from the launch pad. I would definitely check out KennedySpaceCenter.com to see when upcoming launches are happening and what kind of tickets they have that would fit you best. They have 1 to 2 day admissions, and they also have discounts for seniors and military, so definitely go check it out to see what packages work for you. Now keep in mind with all these packages, it still allows you to visit Kennedy Space Center, so even if you don't get to see a launch, you still get to visit all of their attractions. Now if you aren't able to actually go and visit Kennedy Space Center, you still have opportunities to see a launch from the Cape Canaveral area. One of the places that you can actually go to is Cocoa Beach, where you can actually stand on the beach and see the launch from all the way over at Cape Canaveral. The Airbnb that we rented was actually in the Cocoa Beach area, and the couple that owned it mentioned that they had gone to the beach to see a couple launches for themselves, so that is another option that you have. Now for Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, the public is actually not able to go into the Space Force Station itself, but you can still see these launches from similar places like Cocoa Beach or at Kennedy Space Center. Kennedy Space Center sometimes offers packages for launches from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, if the views are optimal. If you're on the West Coast, another location you can actually see a launch is at Vandenberg Space Force Station in California. Now, I haven't personally been to Vandenberg Space Force Station, but from what I read online, the best places to see a launch is on West Ocean Avenue, just west of Lompoc. There are multiple locations along this road where you can see a launch, and the road leads all the way to a beach, so you could also go to Surf Beach or Ocean Park to go see a launch as well. Again, since it's a military base, you won't have access to the actual military base itself. You'll have to use public roads on the outside to try to get a good view of the launch. The last place I would like to mention is my personal favorite, which is Boca Chica, Texas, or STARBASE, Texas, where they have their Starship launch facility. The reason I like STARBASE the best is because of the ability to actually see the launch pad up close. Running through the STARBASE complex is Texas State Route 4. This road is open to the public and allows you to get right up next to the launch pad and see the rocket up close. Everyday Astronaut has a great video covering how to plan a trip to STARBASE, and I'll post the link to that video in the description. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it down to STARBASE prior to them closing the roads for the launch, so I didn't get to see the rocket up close. But I did meet a guy on South Padre Island who was able to actually see the rocket up close, and he also saw a lot of content creators from the space community preparing to tape the launch. The reason STARBASE is my favorite is because of the ability to actually get up close to the facilities and see everything for yourself. I also enjoy the crowd atmosphere during the launch a bit more because of the attitude and excitement from the crowd. To view the actual launch, I recommend going to the southern tip of South Padre Island along Padre Boulevard. There, I was able to get a pretty good view of the launch tower and the ship when there were gaps in the fog. The next thing I want to get into is how to plan your visit. Start by checking launch schedules on sites like NASA's or SpaceX's. These are updated regularly, so keep an eye on them. Personally, when I went to see launches, I checked SpaceX's X account, formerly known as Twitter. I found the updates there to be more timely and efficient. If you can grab tickets for VIP viewing areas, I 100% recommend doing it. They'll give you the best vantage point and often include extras like guided tours. But if you can't, you can still have a great experience no matter what and still get great views. I recommend arriving early to wherever you decide to go see a launch, especially at South Padre Island. Launches tend to draw large crowds, and getting there earlier will allow you to grab the best seat possible. Now let's talk about what to bring. I highly recommend bringing a pair of binoculars. Yes, seeing the rocket launch with your naked eye is still cool, but bringing binoculars just enhances the experience. Finally, bring essentials like a portable chair for comfort during long waits, snacks to keep your energy up, and sunscreen to protect against the outdoor elements if you're out in the sun. And I can't stress this part enough, don't forget your patience. Launches can be delayed due to weather or technical issues, but trust me, it's worth the wait. If you can't make it to a launch site in person because you can't afford it or you can't take time off work, there are still other opportunities to actually watch launches. Most launch providers actually stream their launches. SpaceX, for example, actually streams their launches on X, and in pretty good quality too. But honestly, space content creators on YouTube provide the best live streams of launches. Channels like NASA Spaceflight, EverydayAstronaut, Marcus House, and What About It, in my opinion, provide the best viewing experience because of the interaction with their community, and you can join them along in their excitement. No matter where you go or where you're at, witnessing a rocket launch is about more than just watching a spacecraft take off. It's about being part of something bigger, a moment that reminds us of humanity's potential. 2025 is packed with incredible opportunities to see a launch. Whether you're planning a trip to a spaceport or tuning in virtually, make it a priority to experience the magic of space exploration. Which rocket will you be watching in 2025? Let me know in the comments below, and feel free to share your past launch experiences or plans for the upcoming year. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content about space exploration, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update about the exciting world of rockets and space.